mid-July-ish or early July, it seems like a
Mhm.
lot of people are on right? Oh my God, I just freaked myself out with the audio. And it seems like a lot of people are on vacation. Have you noticed that? Or wait a minute. You got a little bit of a suntan. Have you been on vacation, Ryan?
I was. I mean, it was a trip to see family. I mean, which can also be a vacation.
Well,
I like my family; they're pleasant to see.
I was gonna say for some people
I
that's
was.
stressful.
Yeah, it's true. Um, last week was no, this week. Wow, it's been a long week. Monday of this week was July 5th, which was the observed holiday,
Yep.
July 4th.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people take the whole week off, right? Because they only have to take 4 vacation days if they're in the corporate world, and
Hmm.
they only have limited vacation time. So that's probably what happened. I know that someone that I'm going to do some work with, I sent them a document on Friday, a week ago before I left, and like it was already like said like things just kind of slow down, like next week. So many people are out. But yeah, I think the month of July, from my experience, working in the corporate world, is that the month of July tends to be where people start staggering vacations, and it gets pretty quiet. It's
So
also a good time to do a lot of work though, because typically there's a lot less disruptions, and you can be heads down on working on the cool stuff that matters.
but that's not how
Versus,
vacations are supposed to work, Ryan. It's not you're not supposed to be like, oh sweet, now I can just do my work. Or are you saying if other people are on
if
vacation,
other
you're
people
saying?
are on
I see.
vacation. So
I see.
if you're bogged down in a corporate job and it's hard to get anything done because you're answering emails all day, the summer might be when you can really get stuff done. I don't know.
Well, that's an interesting transition, though. So let's see how much you want to talk about this, because you have come from a corporate job, right?
Yeah, for about 20 months or so, I I worked in a corporate job for a company that I had done some consulting with, and then was recruited to join the team, and ended up leading a technology team, uh, and then I left at the beginning of this year, like the end of January, actually.
And how much of your
So
soul is left? Is there anything left?
slowly, slowly rebuilding it and finding joy in life again.
Slowly healing.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing to talk about because there are a decent number of people that watch this that they're freelancers, and there are a
Mhm.
decent number of people that work for agencies, and then there are also a lot of people that are going back and forth, right? So we know
Right.
a number of people like Matt Stein was
Mhm.
freelance for quite some time, and then he joined Pixel and Tonic, right? And
Yep.
I've known people that have gone the other way, that they've been working for a company for a long time, and they decided to, just to try their own thing. But I think there are lots of people that are kind of going back and forth. So I'm curious and obviously to some extent it's going to depend on the organization, right? So we'll talk about it a little bit in general. But what do you think some of the advantages of working a full-time job at a company are? Like what are good reasons to be
Uh,
doing that?
well, I think that you mentioned Matt Stein. I think that from what I know of Matt is he's probably similar to me, which is that he's looking for uh, if there's a job that comes along that is interesting and could provide, a valuable experience or an interesting experience or an interesting project or task, then uh, I think that's probably what people like me and Matt are driven by. And that's what I was driven by, is that it seems like an interesting opportunity to do something kind of fun and interesting and different in a space that I hadn't worked in. And I hadn't really had uh, a, a job before that for, I think, for 5 years prior, when I had left my previous job. And so, but as far as the benefits, I mean, the benefits are some of the benefits. I don't really say that you're, like just someone else paying your health insurance,
Yeah.
you know, bonuses, things like that. those can be the benefits depending on the type of business you're coming from. I did really well when I worked for myself prior. So actually took a slight like reduction in pay, but I was more curious as to the experience of like the project that was before us. It wasn't like a money move. And I remember you were surprised when I told you that I was going to take this gig. But the other benefits are, I mean, for some people, the benefits are like a, steady paycheck, right?
I think that's the biggest one. I mean, honestly, I realize it's not the case for everybody.
Is it really that steady? The company I was at had like major layoffs right after COVID hit. And like, I don't see that as there's not any, this doesn't seem all that steady to me. Everybody that I know that worked for themselves pretty much did fine. None of them went and got jobs, right? They kind of saw it through.
Okay, but that's a little bit of an exceptional time. At least I hope it's an exceptional time.
Well, hopefully it's a once in a lifetime or several lifetimes kind of thing, right? Or at least every 100 years or something.
Right. Well, but here's the thing though, man. I think one of the major reasons why people go to work for somebody else is just the security. I'm not talking about a paycheck in terms of necessarily you're going to be making more, but just it's nice to be able to be like, okay, I don't have to worry about trying to find a new client. I don't have to worry about convincing somebody that I'm the right person that they should be working with, right? We've had that conversation. I'm the right person. Right. You hired me. I don't have to have that conversation every month or 3 months or whatever your cycle is, because it is it's sort of like asking someone out on a date. You know what I mean? If you have to do it constantly, you're going to get rejected a whole lot, and it's not the most fun thing to do, So at some point, it's nice to just settle down and get married, and you don't have to worry about a whole lot of nonsense that goes on. I think security is a big part of it, don't you?
Yeah, but that's like a romanticized version of all of those things, right?
I'm romanticizing everything.
The romanticized version of marriage is that it requires like zero effort, right?
No. I did not. I never did those words come out of my mouth. Never did I say that, Ryan.
The romanticized version of a day job is that it is like an autopilot type of thing, right? Now, I will say that one of the advantages, if you are at a good company that has a good team, one of the huge advantages of working at a company is that you can work ideally on deliberately and carefully and at a pace that is sustainable on the same project for an extended period of time. And there's a lot of joy that can come from that, because if you're coming from working with clients where you might be doing 30-day engagements, maybe 3-month engagements or something like that, with set budgets, you don't have a lot of room to go deep on a thing. You can't just go off and say, hey, you know what? It's actually better if we re-architect our hosting and it's all spun up automatically through like CloudFormation or whatever the tool is that you're using. Maybe you can do that at a day job, whereas the client's just like, we don't have the stomach for that type of change right now.
All right, so I got to correct you though, Ryan. Just real quick, okay? I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I did not say under any circumstances that getting married means that you're done and you don't have to put work in. Of course you do, man. I've been married. Think about it, Ryan. I've been married for 15 years or so. Do you think anyone could be married to me without work? I mean, let's be honest. On both ends, okay? Seriously, and of course. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, though, you don't have to have that conversation of, does she like me? Do you want to go out? Whatever. And it's the same kind of thing for you're working at a job, right? You've already decided, rather than trying to court a client, acquire them, convince them that you are competent, convince them that you should do the job, but haggle over the salary. Like, that's just stuff you don't have to deal with for a while.
Yeah, I would actually completely disagree. Is that like a good employee doing good work that wants to, continue to grow and innovate and reinvent themselves as a person that is skilled in whatever area you're in, there is no like going into idle in your job. Those are the types of people that are typically the first on the list when a unpredictable layoff comes up
Yeah.
or something like that.
But that's
right?
not what I'm
If
saying,
you're
though,
not
Ryan. I'm not
What's
saying
that?
that you're not learning. I'm not saying that you're idle. I'm saying there are
Okay.
certain parts of the conversation you don't have to have. You don't have to keep on telling them. You don't have to keep convincing someone that they should hire you. You're hired. Okay? And I'm not saying that
Right.
you then
But
coast and you do nothing. I'm just
But you
saying
have
there
to
are
convince
certain
them that you're
conversations
worth
you don't.
keeping.
There's certain conversations you're done with, is what I'm saying.
Maybe. I think it's honestly like, it's obviously you haven't worked for anyone for
Oh,
ever.
stop.
I don't think you're the best sources of advice for this, Andrew, because
okay.
I think you do have to keep proving yourself, and it's not done through like by convincing someone through a resume that's well crafted and honed to that
Right.
person. It's through your work and your ability
Right.
and through the stuff you do. So you have to, but I think that's hard work. I think good employees, people that really contribute to whatever projects they're on, work hard at that.
I think
mean,
so
it's not always
too.
the case, but I think,
Yeah, I actually, honestly, I think despite your insult, I think we're actually agreeing. I think we're actually agreeing, though, because I'm not saying that you don't have to do continuing education. I'm not saying that you don't have to keep proving yourself and keep growing and all that kind of stuff. I'm saying that there are certain conversations that you no longer need to have. You don't have the insecurity of, I don't know where my paycheck is. You don't have the insecurity of convincing someone to work with you at all. You're to some extent you're there. And now, yes, how far you go is going to depend on how much you contribute and what you put in. And I agree that all of that is work, like 100% that's work. I'm just saying, like a lot of the freelancers that I've talked to that do this very often, one of the things that they're most tired about is that they constantly have to acquire new clients. And for a lot of new clients, depending on how you meet them, depending on how the intro is, part of it is convincing them that you're even the right person to do this, bidding on the project, doing all that kind of good stuff. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a little bit different of a conversation. Now, on the other hand, the benefits of being a freelancer or working on your own or owning your own business or whatever it may be is that you do have that flexibility to kind of do what you want, right? Where if I wake up one day and I want to go fishing, I'm just going to go fishing. You know what I mean? And that is really valuable to some people and not that valuable to other people. Where does it rank for you?
Oh, it's absolutely at the top of the list. Autonomy and the freedom to do what I want when I want is the first thing I noticed when I worked for someone, and it's the first thing I noticed when I didn't work for someone. However, that being said, I work just as many hours and just as hard. And I'm still like, I joke, sometimes with myself that like I show up at the office every day as if someone is here waiting for me to clock in.
Yeah, but
Because
sometimes it's
just
not how many hours you work, it's who you're doing them for and what you're doing them on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, it's just like that's just how my motor works. Like I like to come in. I'm very organized about the things that I'm going to do in a certain day, and I sit down and I do them. And I just like to be here. I mean, I just took, I was gone for 5 days. I just got back yesterday. I do take time off, but
Did you clear it with your boss?
he wasn't too happy about it. He did make me work a little bit while I was away. But yeah, I mean, so there are some advantages to having to having a job. I will say that people that are burned out on like the client services type of work, I think that's just a hard business model to be in. Like I think it can be very rewarding, both with the type of projects you get to do. I always loved just working with, learning about different businesses, different industries. It can be really rewarding there. If you do it well, it can be really rewarding financially if you're, the business owner or a freelancer or something like that. If you're
Yep.
good and can land, good projects. But it can definitely be a grind. But I would say honestly, like everything can be a grind. A day job can be a grind.
Goddamn right.
Especially if you find yourself not caring anymore
Yeah.
about the work, right? Because you're just like, I just don't care. But sometimes that happens. You're just like, wow, I actually really don't care about this.
And I
it's
think
not that
that's
you're
the
a bad
biggest
person.
thing. I think that's the biggest thing, regardless of whether you're working for yourself or you're working for somebody else, is that you find the work fulfilling and you care about it. I think that's the biggest part. I really do.
Yep. Yeah. And I know people that work at corporate jobs and have for years that truly care about the work that they do.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, that's been hard to find.
Yep.
But, that's why I've always, I guess, have been drawn back to working for myself on things that I care about. But also, these aren't like passion pursuits, where I'm just like after some dream. Like it's the reasonable pursuits that are founded in, like a business model that works.
So for me, as someone that has worked for myself and owned my own company for almost my entire life, the appeal of working for a company or working for somebody else is that I could be involved in something bigger than myself. Like there's a cap on what I can do on my own in terms of the reach, the impact, and all that kind of good stuff. Like there's a cap. There's only so much you can do. I mean, you're one person. I don't care who you are. There's only so much you can do. So there could be some very interesting, and I have flirted with some companies over the years about doing this, that, or the other thing. And if they were things where I could be working on something that was, bigger than myself and was really interested in doing it, I think I would go for it, Ryan. I think I would definitely go for it because there are things that interest me that I know I just can't do them on my own. I can't have that impact when it's just me. There's no way to do it,
Right. Totally. And that's when I think, and that's kind of what drew me away from working for myself was exactly that. And then the way that I went into that was knowing that, this isn't permanent. And I actually stood in my office, this office right here, which I kept the entire time, and said, before
wait a minute, Ryan. Wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute. You kept the office like waiting for you? That's a very okay. You kept the side chick around. You were not committed.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I was still in here on the weekends, writing and recording training material.
Got it.
And the other one is that the increase in office rent in this part of I'm not in downtown Austin, but I'm what's called Central Austin. I'm just a couple miles from my house. Has increased so much that I'm kind of locked in at a rate that I would never be able to get a place this at this rate. So it just made more sense.
So you can't afford to.
But
get
anyway,
rid
and
of
plus
it,
it's like it's part of my I always knew that nothing is permanent. There's cycles to everything. I've seen cycles of you see cycles of as you get older, you see cycles of lives, you see cycles of businesses, of all sorts of things. And I also knew that I promised myself, I stood here in the office and said, you always, can leave at any time. You know that you can, come back and work for yourself at any time. And also nothing is permanent. So, so when I left, I mean, it actually worked out really well because during the pandemic, I was able to work out of this office too full time. Looks like we have a comment.
Yep. So Caroline says the way around it becoming not bigger than you is to grow the company. She says if you grow the company, it becomes about them too. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's the thing though. I mean, this is going to sound really weird maybe to some extent, but I ran a company for a long time, and we had a dozen or more employees and a number of contractors and that type of thing. And I kind of don't really want to do that again. Like I don't want to be the guy that runs that. At least not right now. I mean, at least currently, this is not the thing that I really want to do. I am at the point where I am outsourcing some things to contractors though, Ryan. Like I do have some people that are doing some stuff for me that I just don't have time to do. And I'm scaling that up on the side with contractors. But I think part of this is we've talked about this before. A lot of this just is about knowing yourself and being honest with yourself. And I'm pretty sure that that's not really something that I want to do right now. You know, like I'm just not interested in. I'm more interested in collaborating than I am in managing or being the boss of somebody, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like you and I collaborate on more than one project.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. But, you know, getting back to what we were talking about before, I've known a decent number of people that have been freelance and have decided, or consultants actually is the nicer word, right? You get paid more money if you say you're a consultant. Yeah. And they've gone to work for a corporate job, and not all corporate jobs are created equal, right? I mean, you could have great environments, you could have terrible environments, you could have great people, terrible people, project interesting, not interesting. So I'm not saying everything all is equal, but a lot of them have gone in for the reasons I mentioned, where they're not interested in the hustle, they feel more secure and comfortable, not having to acquire clients all the time, just do their thing, do whatever they want to do. But then also something appealed to them about the work that they were going to be doing. And, you know, it always starts off with, well, don't worry, you'll have Fridays off. Or then, don't worry, you'll have Friday afternoons off. You're not going to have to worry about that. Don't worry, you'll have time for this. You'll have time for that. It never ends that way, Ryan. The company, and you know, they're justified in doing so because they are trading their money for your time. But the company always just ends up sucking you in, man. They just grab you and they suck you in, you know?
Yeah. Or yeah, like, you know, here's your total compensation package.
Yep.
You know, that's another trick. A little bit of advice. Get it in salary. Unless you're at a unicorn.
Yeah. Well, unless you want to roll the dice, right? If you're willing to gamble.
Well, yeah, unless you want to roll the dice.
Yeah.
But total comp isn't what's going to end up in your account, your bank account.
And I'm not saying that working for a corporation is a bad thing. I think different people have different needs. They have different interests. They have different things that are important to them. So, you know, I don't think that I'm painting it in a bad light. I just think it's unrealistic to think that you're going to have the freedom you had when you were a freelance consultant when you then transition to work for a company. Like, that's just not how it works. And it's fine that it doesn't work that way, but just be honest with yourself that is not going to work that way, you know?
Depending on your ability to efficiently run a consulting business, you might actually have more time.
Yeah.
When you work for someone, right? If you're if you struggle to manage the projects and the tasks required to do that, like you might actually be like, oh well, I have like my evenings and weekends. You know, that's the one thing I've heard people just say, man, like it's just nice to kind of like hit the off button at 5 p.m. or on Friday and just like have hobbies on the weekend, which I totally get. But I think you can still have a healthy. I mean, Andrew, I know that you work in a like a healthy lifestyle into your day, like with hikes and things like that, right? It doesn't have to. It's another thing with like when you work for yourself, it doesn't have to be like a total grind where you have no time to do anything and like you don't exercise, you don't eat well, like and stuff like it doesn't have to be like that.
If you work for yourself and you are not taking care of yourself and you are not doing these things, then you're a terrible boss. You know, I'm sorry, but you are.
Right.
You know?
Well, it's the same way if you work for yourself and you hold back money and don't pay yourself, right? Like one of the pieces of advice I got when I went out and worked for myself the first time was to make sure I prioritize paying myself. Because if I'm not happy in the business, if I don't feel like I'm being compensated for my work, then there's no way it's going to go well.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes off as kind of selfish. And there's a lot of like methodologies for running businesses where it's like contrary to that, you know, where you're as the founder or the owner, you're supposed to starve yourself in order to grow the business. I've seen that turn into people just resenting their businesses, and
Sure.
that just basically is infects everything else, including if
Yeah.
you have employees or freelancers.
Yep.
Like, you have to be happy and content as the founder or the owner so that it goes well. That doesn't mean that you drain the business of all funds because you have some, luxurious lifestyle that requires, all of the business income to satisfy. But it doesn't mean that you need to have your, your monthly nut met before you take on anyone else.
Well, it depends on what your goals are too, right? So I'm very much a lifestyle business kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going on hikes. That's why I do workouts. That's why, some days I'll do stuff and other days I won't do a whole lot. But other people will start up companies as founders with the intention of working their ass off so that they can sell it, so that they can parlay it, they can exit, and they can parlay it into something else. I don't know why I've never really had interest in that. I understand how it can be exciting. You can take on the VC, you can rapidly try and grow it, try and spin it up into something amazing, and then sell it off to someone. And I know people, I'm friends with people that do this. They're serial entrepreneurs, and they just love that part of it. And I think I'm too lazy to do that, Ryan. I'm just like, you know what? If I found something that works pretty good, I'm just gonna do that thing that works pretty good.
Right. Yeah, it's a whole different approach to having a business and making a living.
All right, but real talk. Let's see how much you're willing to talk about. You are no longer at that company that you were at. Okay.
Correct.
What were your reasons for leaving? What were your reasons why you were just like, you know what? I took a foray into this. I had my reasons for joining. Yep. Was it that the expectations didn't match reality? Was it that you had issues with people that you worked with there? Or like, what were the reasons why you decided, okay, I was there for a little bit. I'm done. I'm going to go back.
So the initial reasons were that it no longer was something that interested me. I felt like my role there, as far as I saw it, like, had played out, and I didn't. That's like one of the best things that I've learned over a 20-something year career is that, like, of just having the self-awareness of recognizing when your role has played out. And so I wasn't like asked to leave or anything. It was just my role had played out there, and I decided that. And I was also kind of burned out. Like, it was I was leading a team during COVID at a company that was severely impacted by COVID, and so that becomes very stressful. And so I just decided that and this was like months before that I was going to begin to plan my exit. So so it started with me. Like, the initial, the seed of the whole thing was me. And I always knew that it wasn't 20 months is a long time. And it's a long time away from the thing that I honestly cared more about, which was my own work, the stuff that I do at Craft Quest, and just the rhythm I have of writing and producing training material, working with other people, and then getting immediate feedback from people that are learning from the stuff. I just really enjoyed that. So yeah, no, it wasn't it really the original seed of it was in me.
So to be clear, you quit. You were not fired for some kind of horrible reason, right?
No,
Okay.
I quit.
Let's make it clear for everybody.
It's yeah, and I'm oversimplifying a very complex situation in a business that was in a huge transition period because of COVID. But
do you remember in middle school, Ryan, when it was really important that everyone knew that you broke up with her, she didn't break up with you? You know what? I realized that still the same stupid thing is still important. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. But even if someone, even whether you quit or even if you get fired, those are events, single events in your career, your life. They do not, they're not defining. I mean, obviously, unless you're fired for something horrible, or illegal, right? That's different. But if you just, if the
Wait, you were
company's
fired for
moving
something
its way-
illegal?
No, I'm saying like those are the things that stick with your career and stick with you if you're doing something terrible.
Is there
if
something you'd
for some
like to
reason just
disclose, Ryan?
I'm not even getting drawn into
Okay.
your police tactics here. But if the company is changing or the team is changing, directions are changing, sometimes teams shift technology, right? And then you're no longer a good fit. Either way, like all those things are events. Taking a job is an event. Like those aren't career defining. All of that is malleable and changeable. You can move around. And I actually encourage people to be flexible in that type of situation. You just you don't have to like I know job hopping is very common now, like 18 months or something like that. But I think people should find things that are interesting to them and then add value, and then if they feel like that they can no longer, then move on, do something else. I think it's completely okay.
Well, and that's also kind of part of the game. If you're going to do the corporate game, is that you are always doing that, right? You'll take a job and you'll try to put the bullet points on there, but you're always kind of looking for the next rung on the ladder, and you're trying to reach up. And again, I think I'm just too lazy. Like, that just sounds exhausting. It sounds like I'd be spending so much of my life just looking for and trying to acquire the next job that it just I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a whole. I mean, in tech, that's the whole game.
Yeah.
And it's honestly the only way to get significant pay increases.
Yep.
Right? Because once you get, especially if you're in a bigger company that has tiered salary bands or salary bands or tiers, where you're only moving up in increments, the only way to get a big increase is to leave
or stay there a long time. I mean, I've looked at some of the salaries that Google pays, man. You can be making like $500,000 if you're one of their senior architect engineers or whatever. That's not bad.
Absolutely.
That's their compensation package. That's not raw salary, but still. Yeah.
But if you but that's a proven company, right? So that comp is most likely, nearly guaranteed as long as you're performing well.
As long as you vest all the shares and all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah.
Now, those are, the top tier jobs.
Yeah.
So those aren't, that salary and that type of job isn't available to anyone or everyone.
Are you telling me I can't cut it, Ryan? Are you telling me that I just should not dream that I could ever do that job? You're just saying I don't have the stuff to make it there.
Well, I would say,
you can tell. Good talk. You can tell me. Real talk.
From my experience working with you, Andrew, I would say that from your attitude towards work, you probably wouldn't do well there. In terms of just your mentality, your approach, right?
Oh, that hurts.
And it's not. It's actually a compliment. But that you just technically speaking, your raw skills and your ability to figure out new things, I think you would be a star employee at a company like that. Now,
so you call me lazy is what I'm hearing.
I didn't say you're lazy. I just said you're making certain choices. But I'm also complimenting your intelligence.
Okay.
So for anyone, if there's anyone that's young enough listening to this, there's a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, and it talks about this kind of thing, which is basically don't go after a passion thing. If you really want to succeed in a field that you think you're a good fit for, and you want to reach the upper echelons of that, like a senior, at a FANG company, like a senior role at a FANG company, then it has to be a deliberate practice to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's you're right, and that's what those people are doing.
Yep.
But again, that also means that it's kind of like the person that from high school who wanted, since they were in kindergarten, they wanted to be a lawyer, and they did all the things they had to do to be a partner at a law firm. Their happiness level is probably not as high as Andrew Welch's happiness level in his more, or even me, right? I consider my career path to be a bit more, or a lot more meandering than, I have a master's degree in German literature. It doesn't get more meandering than that.
Wow.
But meandering, but probably a happier than a senior partner at a law firm, because that's all they've ever done. And it's always, now that's also, it's also very rewarding, financially as well. But I mean, I don't know, there's lots of ways to make money.
That's the hard thing about it, though, right? Is what would be better? And it's really hard to know, because how are you going to know what your happiness level would be because in order to be this senior partner in a law firm that you're talking about,
Right.
you would have to spend your life to do that. So you can't just be like, you know what? I'm going to do that for a little bit, and I'm going to see if I was happier doing that than I am being able to do my own thing at my own pace.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's no way that you can just snap your fingers and switch roles completely and decide, hey, this is going to be better. So the only thing you can do is something very similar to what you've done over the years. Is you've tried out various stints working in various companies, and you've also tried out doing stuff on your own, and you've kind of figured out, what kind of stuff you enjoy more. Not to say that if a certain opportunity came your way, you wouldn't potentially, be checking it out and taking it up. But, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. It's a, like, I just feel like you have to kind of be open to experiences. We can't. I mean, it's a trope and it's cliche, to say that, like, the only thing we can't get more of is time. But it's like it's how I frame my work in my life is, that I can't get more time, so I want to make sure that I'm doing things that I care about. I'm also taking opportunities.
Yep.
That you're saying yes. Your default is to say. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, you should say no" as a default to everything. I think you should actually say yes, or at least think yes, and then evaluate based on that for those bigger decisions.
I will say, though, there's one thing you mentioned earlier about potentially you might have more time on your hands working at a company than freelance or, consultant or whatever on your own. And of course, to some extent that may be true, right? Because you are the one setting your own hours to one extent or another based on your priorities in terms of what you need, right? So you need to make enough money to pay the rent, and then what you want in terms of income and how you want to build a company, all that kind of stuff. Right. So to some extent, you determine that fate. But I will tell you one thing that I've noticed. Because of what I do, I talk with a whole bunch of people online, whether it's on Discord or IM or video chats or, whatever. It's like a staple of my day that I'll be talking to people in one way or another. And I'll tell you what, man, the people that end up going from freelance or consultant or running their own show to working at a company are a lot less available, just in general.
Yeah.
Once they take that. So, I don't know.
Absolutely. It's a total trade-off. You basically lose control of your schedule and your calendar. And
what value does that have to you that you do control that? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe some people like the fact that it's planned out for them. Like I get that too.
Yeah, maybe. I'm definitely not one of those people, but I really enjoy one of the biggest benefits I get out of working for myself is that, like I could wake up whenever I want. I mean, I don't. I always wake up at the same time, but the benefit is not that, I get to sleep in. But it's that, like, I show up at my office every morning and I open up like a document or a planner, and I just start to list like what I need to accomplish or want to work on that day. And sometimes I have to work on a certain thing, like I'm working on a course right now that I really have to finish for next week.
Yep.
But sometimes it's like, well, what am I going to work on today? Like what is interesting to me? And it's not that like, oh, I'm suddenly going to go, like buy equipment to set up a pottery studio in my office, and I'm just doing something completely random. But it's more of, it's part of a broader like plan that I have, and I can kind of choose, what I want to work on. Maybe I want to work on marketing today. Maybe I want to, write a plugin that puts bugs all over your screen. I don't know.
Well, I think there's a lot of value in that to me. But here's the thing, and I'm trying to I'm trying to frame this from a number of different perspectives, even though they aren't my own, because I know people that, for instance, waking up in the morning to a blank sheet of paper is the worst thing that could possibly happen to them, because they're just not interested in that. You know, they would feel much more comforted if they woke up in the morning to a bulleted, pointed list of the things that they were supposed to accomplish that day. Like they would just do so much better with that, you know?
Well, it depends. Is it a list that someone else created, or is it a list that they created?
For some people, it doesn't matter. For some people, they just, feel very insecure is not the right word, but maybe anxious, or just, whatever it is. If they don't have some kind of structure where some of this stuff is provided for them, and they tend to work better on a team with other people, And I don't know, but then there are other people that waking up in the morning to a blank sheet where I can write down whatever it is that I want to do or whatever interests me would be like the most amazing thing. But I'm going to tell you, at least a secret from my perspective, is that I think it's both, right? I think it's sort of like, it's kind of like a rhythm or a tide or something like that. Some days, the fact that I can do whatever I want is just amazing, and I'm thrilled, And other days, it's actually a little bit like I have to force myself, like, okay, what am I going to do? And I actually will sit down and, make lists of, what I'm going to do and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, there are lots of things that kind of go in a rhythm like that. And you were talking about, hey, maybe I want to do this plugin that does bugs. Maybe I want to do that. I think the ability to be in touch with yourself and to be able to say, you know what, this is something that really interests me, and to be able to then just go do it is super valuable. And
totally,
I do that with I write lots of blogs and I do this, that, and the other thing. I have lots of ideas for blogs, but what I typically do is I kind of just wait until my brain is in the mood to write. And then I'm just like a demon, and I just like write the whole thing, and it's just amazing. And start to, I'm not saying the final result is amazing. I'm saying me doing the work feels amazing. The result may be terrible.
Yeah, you're in like a flow state at that point, because
like a flow state, but it's almost like surfing to some extent. Like I kind of wait for the wave, and in some ways, I feel like lots of people are this way, or maybe I don't know, maybe it's just me, but to some extent, we're passengers in our own body. And we kind of wait until the wave comes along, and we know that it's the right time to jump on it and to surf down it.
Yeah.
At least that's the way it works for me.
You had, waves, and you had also mentioned like rhythms and stuff. So one of the things that I've been, since this is my second time working for myself, I have that 5 years of experience before, and now then I had almost 2 years to kind of reflect on it. Without doing it. And so I've been much more like introspective and kind of in touch with like the experience of like how I work. And one of the things I realized is that I do have like a rhythm to my work, and it tends to be in 2 to 3 week sort of like, I don't want to call them sprints, because that's, so it's just like so corporate,
that makes it sound terrible.
Yeah, but it's like 2 to 3 weeks of like where I have, and I'm coming up on the end of one right now. I can already feel it because I'm getting tired. But I have 2 to 3 weeks where I'm really intensely working. I'm amped up. I'm motivated. I'm working at all times a day, right? Like, when it's, when everyone's, sleeping or doing other things, like I might be, like doing some work on my laptop. All through the day, I'm amped up working on it. And then there's like this weird, like post, intense phase where I feel kind of lost, and I'm like, okay, like and I'm trying to figure out what's next. And it took me a while to realize like that's actually the downtime that I need to recharge myself for that next wave. And those waves are so productive that like at first I tried to fight against it, and I said, oh, like I should be this productive all the time, but it's not sustainable. Your brain can't sustain that type of like deeper work, like intense work at a long period. You have to phase in like recharge time as well, 1 to 2 weeks. So I typically have 3 weeks And then 1 to 2 weeks, I'm still working. It's just not as intense.
And I think that the clinical term for that, Ryan, is post-coital dysphoria, I believe is the technical term for what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, we'll link to that in the show notes. But no, I totally agree with you in terms of what you're saying, and I do the same thing. Like I'm like, so what is Andrew up for today? And if I'm feeling super on about something, then it's going to be some complicated new feature that I've wanted to add to one of my plugins. And look, I'm not saying that this is always this, smorgasbord of choice. There are also days that I just wake up that, client needs XYZ done. Okay, I'm going to do XYZ, right? But there are also times where I can pick what it is I'm going to work on. And I pick what I'm going to work on based on where kind of I feel I'm at. It's not even just a conscious thing. I just kind of know, like, I gravitate naturally towards doing this, or gravitate naturally towards doing that, just kind of based on where I'm at. Do you experience anything like that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I let it, that's why I've learned over the last 6 months to let those things come to me during that 1 to 2 week downtime.
Yep.
And to say, it's like what I'm working on right now. Like that result, like the original idea of the project I had, and then you and I were going back and forth, and you had some really good ideas for how to make it better.
You want to say anything about it, or you want to keep it?
Let's wait.
Okay. All right.
And when's this coming? Yeah, let's wait. So, and then, and that set me off. Like I went way deeper down the rabbit hole than I thought I was going to go, but it ended up being like really cool.
Did you like it though?
Yeah, no, and I'm still having fun because I'm still, after this, I'm about to do some recording, but it ended up being really rewarding. I learned some new things, and I, both in like coding and also in, like how I can teach people in a different way. And, so, and then I was just off, and I've been on that, like, cause it took way longer than I had anticipated. But
yeah, for anyone, I'm not going to give anything away, Ryan, but basically Ryan was working on something, and I'm like, what would be cool? and Ryan was just like, but that's a lot of work, but damn it, that actually is really cool.
I was so resistant. I was like, I'm just going to put this, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to put this out. Then I started thinking about it, and I was like, like this is actually a really good idea. And
isn't that annoying? Isn't that annoying when you're just like, God damn it. I thought I was done with this thing, but God damn it, that's actually such a good idea. It's a good idea.
And it was a lot more work. And it also challenged the way that I wanted to structure this this course that I was doing. Like it completely changed that. And I was like, because you can get stuck in your ways, right? You can be like, a course is structured this way. I do these things, like a blog post is written in these ways. I do these things. And then, I kind of was forced out of that, and I slowed down the project, and I think it's going to be cool. I'm kind of excited.
And first of all, I think the end result is going to be really cool. But the other thing that I think is worth keeping in mind is that you've enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's amazing. You know what I mean?
Right.
That doesn't happen all the time. There are lots of times that we're doing work and we're not sitting there like smiling the whole time, not at all.
Oh no, I was cussing you part of that time, but most of it I was smiling.
Well, I mean, I consider that an accomplishment, really. If I'm able to do that, I think I've done something right, and my day is good. But okay, so
just really quickly though, to be transparent, is that there were times when I was like, I need to ask Andrew how he would do this, but I refused because I said he gave me, I was being stubborn. I said, like you gave me the idea, and I didn't want to take more from you than that idea. I wanted to take it and make it my own. So it was kind of an interesting experience.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because I wasn't giving you the idea so that I could make work for myself. It was more just here, take this. But I'm
Right.
excited to. I've seen some of the results of it, and I think it's really cool. And I think people are gonna. I think people are gonna like it. I think it's gonna be fun on a number of different levels. But I did want to.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked a bunch about working on your own, working quitting corporate jobs, going back and forth, doing all that kind of good stuff. I want to just real quick talk about a couple of small, or maybe one technical thing that's been going on. Well, okay. There's something that I did a little while ago where I've been using a Docker-based plugin development system, right? And I created this for myself, and then I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to publish how I did it. So if anyone else wants to do it, they can do it. And the nice thing about it is that I can just spin up my plugin dev. We've demoed it on CraftQuest. I can switch between Postgres databases, MySQL databases, all this kind of fun stuff. Well, the benefits came home to roost for me because I had a contractor that I wanted to work with me on something. And I said, here. And I just pointed them at the repo and the 3 steps that they needed to do. They spun up the development container. They instantly had hot module reloading. They had all of this amazing stuff. And we were using the exact same system. So everything just worked smooth. And it was just amazing. It was great.
Yep.
And my favorite thing about that is that the work that I did the work that past Andrew did, paid off in spades.
Yep.
You had that happen to you? I love that.
No, I love that too. And it definitely ties into working for yourself or even working for a company is build systems,
Yep.
build yourself systems and things that you can repeat easily. There's a huge value. I think that's one of the things that drive people crazy about working at corporate jobs is that they feel like that everybody's just redoing stuff constantly.
Yeah.
And you're not building efficiencies.
Yeah.
But if you work for yourself, you can build systems.
But I think a lot of people that work for themselves don't take the time to do it because I think that we should be, in a lot of cases, we should be building systems, whether that's a development system, a design system, or whatever. We should be building systems more than we should be just writing code. And there's a big difference between the two.
Absolutely.
And I think it can be tough if you're on your own to take the time to build out a system, but I think it really, really pays off in the end. And so this is something that is related to that. So there's a big debate in terms of should we be using JavaScript frameworks at all? You'll have on one side, you'll have people that write everything in React and they don't know anything else and they don't need to know anything else. And they're at one side. And then you have traditionalists that write HTML, JavaScript, CSS, sprinkle in the JavaScript where they need it. And then there's this whole spectrum in between, right? Well, I've been someone that I've been embracing some of the front-end frameworks. So my plugins are using Vue components inside of them. And I have a plugin called Retor that lets you display a table of 404s that have happened. And there are various things you can do with this table. You can search it, you can sort it, you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. Well, along came a feature that someone wanted me to add, or it was actually, I think I came up with the idea, but it was based on their need, where what I wanted it to do was remember the state of this complex component so that, if I am on page 32 and I'm searching on this and whatever, and then I navigate away and then I navigate back, that complex state is restored, right? Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a really complicated thing, but it actually ended up being so damn simple for me to do it because I was using this formalized system of Vue where they have components that are defined and they've got various APIs to them. Someone else was able to make something that I could easily just, it's a mix-in basically, where you just add it to the component and it will just automatically remember its state so that the next time that it mounts, its state will be restored to what it was. Now, there are a couple of small tweaks that I had to do, but I had this up and working in literally 2 minutes, Ryan. 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And had I just written this in vanilla JavaScript or whatever, I understand, there are benefits to doing that as well, but there is zero shot that I would have been able to get this up and working as quickly, you know?
Yep. Like, what are the benefits though for your customers if you wrote that in vanilla JavaScript? About 0, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you could argue that there's one less dependency, but they already have it in the Craft CP. They already have Vue there that is used by a lot of stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's just a different methodology. It's a different way of thinking about it. Like our friend Ben, you know, and great mutual respect, but he is sort of more on the let's do as much on the server side as we can and as little as possible with front-end JavaScript and stuff like that, right? Which is great. It's fine. I understand the desire to have the complicated state in one place or the other rather than in both places. But you're going to have a tough time doing something like this as easily if you don't use and leverage some of these frameworks, you know? I don't know. I was just really pleased. It was this one moment where I was just like, man, I'm so glad that I wrote this as a Vue component because literally I just added it in and away we go.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, that's
I
funny.
like those moments too.
A little Japanese beetle just flew in here and he's right on my teleprompter. He's just hanging out, walking around. So anyway, if you see some like kind of crazy bug that's showing up on the video, that's what he is. He's decided to crawl on there. Speaking of bugs, Ryan,
Yes.
bugs that are in the system, but the reason I wanted to mention that about the Docker and also the Vue is they're both very similar in that they are creating systems. And because I created those systems and that framework that I could nestle on top of and end within, doing some things was just so rewardingly easy. And I was pretty thrilled about that. About that.
Well, it's like you benefited from a technical debt choice you made,
Yes.
right? And sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. It's like the everlasting, thing you have to deal with when you're doing technical stuff. I think it's actually a broader concept than that. I think it's more of like a human condition concept, like in terms of like when you make certain choices, there's impacts, from making those choices. And this is just another application of that.
I think that I benefited because of the structure that I adopted, right? So it's the formalized structure that is in the Docker setup for plugin development allows someone to just start using it easily. The formalized structure and documented, I will add, structure in Vue components allowed someone to just really easily put this little layer on top of it that saved the state, and then I could just grab it and just slam it right in there and it just worked. So I think a lot of it is the system and the structure part of it that allowed me to do it. And I think that's sort of maybe sometimes an overlooked benefit of using some of these things that people are like, that's too much stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah,
there are benefits, There
are benefits and trade-offs and downsides.
Always.
But welcome to being an adult.
And that about wraps it up for another episode of the devMode.fm podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe, tell a friend, drop us a review. We really appreciate it. For the devMode.fm podcast, I'm Andrew Welch.
And I'm Ryan Irelan.
And away we go. All right. So I'm going to get this down here. So you didn't end up... here, let me send you that post-coital dysphoria. I'm surprised you're not aware of this. There we go. I just sent you a link.
Okay. You want to stop your Zencastr recording too?
Yeah, I'm just catching a little bit of after vibe there. But,
no, I'm pretty good on.
You're good on no after vibe. Let me see here. Okay, see you. All right, and then we gotta go off air on here. Finish.